Hello everyone, welcome back. So in our WebdriverIO with TypeScript series, today we are going to see how we can migrate the WebdriverIO libraries into the version 8, and we will see what are the different changes that they are bringing and how it impacts to your existing framework or the project that you have been using actually. Okay, so as you can see, the WebdriverIO has a good documentation, and then they also provided a blog about what are the recent changes they made into the version 8 and what are the upcoming roadmaps for them. So we will come back to this particular blog to see the details, but before to that, let me go back to my code base, and as you can see, all the WebdriverIO libraries or the packages are of 7.x, right? But we will be changing that to 8. Now for this we will be using a npm command, that is npm check updates. Now this is one of the library which helps you to track all the multiple libraries at one time to see if there is a latest version available or not, and once you will apply this, then you can install those packages. Now without wasting time, let me just go and use the command as it suggests. So for this I will be using a global command, but I will be using the inbuilt terminal only. So I will say npm install -g npm check updates. Okay, so now this package has been now installed. Now let's see the commands. So as you can see, the uses, you need to have the short format as NCU instead of npm check updates. Now let's see what exactly it gives you the option. So NCU. And now it is tracking all the packages that I have into the package.json, and here you can see it is listing out all the latest versions which I can upgrade from my existing version. For an instance, 2.6.22, 2.6.3, or else 7. All the 7.x version I can change it to 8.8.7. You can see all these things it is already giving. And so for this, what I can do, it is asking it is saying in information that you can use the ncu space u to upgrade the package.json. Now when you command this, so ncu -u, it doesn't really install the latest versions, but it will just update your package.json file. Now let me do that. So if you do that, now you will see all the packages got changed. Now you can edit whatever you want. Like for an instance, let's say that WebDriver wait for, I don't want the 3.0.3, I want some other versions. So you can just change that version, because some are compatible with your project, some are really not compatible. So whatever the versions you want to keep, you can simply keep there. And then once you are ready with that, now at this moment I don't want any kind of modifications to this existing one, so I'm just taking as it is only, and then I will be updating them. Okay, fine. So now let's come back to this, and here I will say that npm install. Okay, simply you need to just do that, and now all the updated packages, the updated versions, it will now update it. So let's wait for some time. Okay, so it seems like all the packages are now up to date, so we should be good. Now let's see into the documentation to see that what other things are prerequisite. So here you can see the git is also updated with your latest packages, whatever we have now installed. Okay, fine. Now let's come back to this documentation. And if I go to this WebdriverIO v8 released, it's couple of months back already, but there isn't much change that it happened from this version to the version that we are looking, or the content that it is written, it still stays as valid. Now there are a couple of points that Chris actually highlighted. The one thing is that the main target is that the common JS, right now they are changing that to ESM. Now if you want to like wonder where exactly this is. So the common JS is there, right? Now they are targeting this module to ESM module actually here. That is one of the big change they are doing. And then after that they are dropping couple of Node.js support like the 12, 13, 16. I think now people are using the 14 or 16 or 18, right? So that's why they are dropping the support for this older versions of the Node. Now let's see what is the version of the Node that I have. So Node-v, and you can see that the latest version I'm using the your 18 actually, and I'm using my NVM actually to deal with all this. So you can even use that. We have already discussed about how to use the NVM and what are the benefits. Okay, so that is the second modification that they did. Now you can see why exactly they have changed from CommonJS to ESM module. So this is like basically the one change that from the coding standpoint is that so you need to now use the import statements instead of require actually. If you want to use the required statement, then you can continue with the CommonJS. There is no issues with that. But if you are changing that to the ESM module, then you need to make sure that you are using the import. So all the required statements, whatever you are doing to fetch the methods or the variables from different packages or classes, you need to now use the import statement. Okay, and now have introduced a new runner for your unit and component testing. This is specifically for the developers if they want to pitch into the WebdriverIO. So before actually all the component testing or unit testing we were doing on top of the JS DOM. JS DOM is kind of a simulator on top of your browser where the test cases on the component was executing. But now you don't really need the JS DOM. You can directly use it on the browser actually. Like whatever the components, whether it is React.js or Vue.js, whatever the components you are using, those component modules, if you want to test it, and the data flow, that you can directly now execute on the browser console itself. Now for this actually, if you want to really see the in detail and the like all these things, whatever the code base they are using, I would refer to go to this Selenium conference which happened recently, and you can see that the Chris actually himself have kind of pointed out a couple of things and also a good demo on that, the component test with WebdriverIO. So you can watch that and you will understand how he is live running the test cases on the browser itself. Okay, fine. Now let's move to the next, and that is a new action interface. So now they have introduced the action and actions, both of these commands. By using that, you can perform any kind of mouse over actions or any kind of key events you can directly use on your browser application. So that made your life easy with the introduction of the action interface. Okay, now the next is that WebDriver BiDi support. Now what is this BiDi? So this is basically the bidirectional support. Now this is one of the new protocol they have introduced. We call it as a, what do you call, the WebDriver protocol. If you would have heard about the Selenium 4, right, or any recent tools that is coming, they are using the W3C protocol standard. They have omitted or voided the or removed the dependency of JSON wide protocol. So this BiDi support basically will help you to kind of leverage certain browser properties. Like you can get to know the browser geolocations, you can get to browser logs, network calls. So anything that is related to the browser, not related to the application, those browser related information now easily you can get it, because all the browsers, right, in this particular market, whatever it is available, the standard is that they need to support the BiDi protocol actually. So that's why the WebDriver is also supporting the BiDi, so that whatever the available methods or the available features or the properties, we can inherit that into our automation tools actually. So that is one of the benefit of that. I think there are this is in a very in progress state actually. Again, if you want to know more about that, Selenium actually given a good WebDriver BiDi information actually into this. So you can simply go to this 30 minutes video and you can understand the the roadmap of WebDriver BiDi, what are the roadmaps that current and in future they are going to add, and you can leverage that as they are adding those features into the WebDriver BiDi. Okay. So let's move on to the next one, and that is optional globals. Now this is again to make it easier. Actually now they are taking couple of the options, like you can see the $, the like find element, find elements, browser, expect, all the browser, WebDriver IOs, what you call those keywords which we are using, or the objects. Now they are taking it into the WDIO globals, actually into a different package, so that it would be easy for you guys to take all those objects from one place. So that is one of the thing, and to do that we have to do some changes into our tsconfig.json. We will be seeing that in couple of minutes. Okay, now there are a couple of things that they have really changed. It doesn't really impact if you haven't really used these things. Like for an instance, to take any config details, let's say that you want to read your config. Like if I go to this, and here if you want to take any config, like let's say that some capabilities you want to fetch it, browser.config.capabilities, so you will get all these details into your code base. If you want to verify certain things, or like let's say that what framework, what kind of log level you are using, all these informations you can grab it from your browser object, right? But now what they're doing, they're removing the support of the config. Now they're introducing this one with the options. Actually, like if you see this, we are already using these options. You can see that this options dot test runner, and if you see that this options is coming from WDIO type. So these options you can now get it directly by using this browser dot options. So if ever you have user browser dot config dot something, now you need to replace this config with options to get to know more details about your configuration file. Okay, and now the next thing is that now this is related to the your spec path. Actually there are a lot of discussions going on that which path I need to use. Do I need to use the complete path of the specs from my root directory or from my system user folder? Actually, so there are two things that I want to highlight. One is, and this is actually changed with these three different situations. If you are using specs, if you are using exclude, if you are using -spec. -spec you are using when you are running a specific test case from your command line. Actually now we are relying mostly from our package.json script, right? Now this script will go to the config file. Now into this config file, whatever the specs section it is mentioned, those scripts are running, right? That is what currently we are doing now, but you can even run from the command also. This is not a new concept, we haven't seen so far, but you can use that the -spec if you want to run it directly from your command line. You don't want to rely on this specs option. Actually, okay, now let's come back and see what is the difference that they have added related to the path for specs and spec. Now if you are using -spec, you need to make sure that the path of your spec files should be with respect to your working directory. It means that the root project from here, like if I do this terminal, you need to take from here directly. There is no issues with that. Like how will you specify? Here you can specify like -spec, and you can take it with respect to here. That is nothing but the test is already in my root directory, right? So you can simply say that test slash and then whatever the start.spec file. You can just do like this. Okay, now this is one of the option. But let's say that I want to take this specs situation, like I want to just run with npm run WDIO, then all the specs, now it won't work actually here. Why? Because if you see that to avoid confusion, the specs normally takes it from the config file. Okay, specs or exclude. If you want to exclude any of the spec files or you want to include anything, then you have to provide the path from the config file. It means that now where is our WDIO config file? This is under config folder, right, or the directory. Now if I am taking ./test, it means that it is trying to identify within this location first. Now the dot test is not present, so that's why it is recommended to do like double dot. Now when you say double dot, you are coming out of this config directory, then your root directory is coming, because see, not always we will be keeping our config files into this root directory. In our previous session we have seen that to make it as clutter free, we are keeping it inside a config directory. So that's why this path you need to change, but your config file is into this root directory. Like if you have started recently, you don't need to make it as a double dot, you can make it as a single dot. Now let's see what are the other things they are saying. So there are a couple of roadmaps actually they are keeping, like what is the future scope about the VS Code extension, or about having any other things. You can just come back and refer to this, or I would suggest to like kind of subscribe to this particular WebdriverIO blog so that you can get the recent versions, or whenever they are updating with a new feature, you can get to know the details. Okay, fine then. So now let's see what are the different changes that I need to do. I have just made one change, right, with the specs, but still you might be getting couple of errors actually. If you see here, like I think the browser, yeah, all these things you may not get it because they are changing this browser to the WDIO global, right? So as I told, we need to change this tsconfig.json file a little bit. So for this, we will be changing this module and target actually to ESM module. I think this is ES 2020. Okay, so now let's see that what are the different changes that we need to do in our framework to make sure that it works with the version 8. Now one thing is that because we changed the tsconfig, right, to the ES next, now it says that all the required statements, right, like if you go to this WDI conf, these things we need to migrate to the import statement. So let's do that one by one. So for this, the first thing is that I will comment this and I will say that import, okay, and I will say allure, okay, and here I will say from, and I will say allure command line. Okay, so that is one thing. And now let's change this as well. So now this is appdata.json, right? So I will say that import data from, and I will say that the path of this app data. Now where is this app data? You can see that under this util appdata.ts. So what I'm going to do now, where is the path? Now I am in conf actually. If I want to get out of this, double dot, then I'm coming to my root directory, then I will say test, and then under this I will say util, right? Yes, util and app data. Now here one thing is that whenever you are taking or importing anything from a TS or a JS file, you have to give the complete path with the file extension. Now it won't accept actually TS, you have to do it as JS. This is again ES next. If you go to the documentation, that says that you need to specify the file extension here. Now there is, I think one more is also there, FS. If I go down, so we have something called FS actually. Here you can see. Now this one also we need to change it. Now instead of this, I will do this to an import statement. So now I will go here. All the import statements you need to put it at the top. That is again one more thing you need to keep it in mind. So I will say that import star as FS from FS. That's it. You just need to mention that. Now one thing is we are now working on this, right? Sometimes I'm getting an issue actually if I'm using this before shoot, right? Whenever this allure result is creating, right, I'm saying delete it. Now this before shoot is not a right option actually to keep it. So instead of putting this into the before shoot, what I'm going to do, I'll put it into the on prepare actually. You will see here on prepare means at the beginning of your test case execution, okay, before any of the workers that got created. And here into the catch, you can see now the problem is that let's say there is already a allure results directory is there. Now it is saying exist, now it is deleting. That's it. Now let's say there is no directory got created. Now this if statement is becoming fail, right, and it never creates. So what we can do, a best practice is to like remove it and put it into a global. It means that now when there is already a file or a directory created in my previous execution, delete that in this try block. After deleting, you recreate again. That's it. That is the main motto of this. Okay, and if you are not sure what is this LU report, you can refer to one of our previous sessions. You will come to know more detail into this. So I think we are pretty much good with our conf.ts file, whatever we have to change it. Now I will go back to my examples.ts. This is my actual test case, right? Now here also you can see that we are taking the ts files, right? So we have to provide the extension. So everywhere I will just make it as .js. You have to make sure that any ts file that you are importing, you need to provide with an extension as .js, and the same thing, all these things I need to give, else it will throw an error actually there that cannot find the module. It will say when you are trying to access any variables or any methods from these things. So I'll just say js. I think one more here also. Okay, here you can see this is again actually required statement. So I will change to import data from, I will say the path. Now the path is again dot data, and then after that app data.json, and sometimes it throws an error, so you need to also specify another thing here, assert, and here you need to say, so any kind of JSON, if you are fetching from some other location, right? So you need to provide the path of that particular JSON actually here, or else it will throw another error. So this is one more thing you need to keep it in mind. Okay, so I think we are pretty much done with everything. Now let's try to run this test case and see that whether it is working fine or not. So I will come back to this location and I will say npm run WDIO in my terminal. Okay, so let's see that if the conf.ts is really redirecting to the proper spec file or not. That is the first thing which we need to do. So here you can see, so the proper path. Now let's see what is the problem. Okay, cannot use a statement outside the module. Okay, so for this actually what we need to do, you have to come back to the package.json, and here you need to specify one thing as a type. So here you need to specify as module actually, so that it will resolve that error whatever we are getting. This is one thing we missed. Okay, so then it will now get outside of your module also. It will check to import certain things. So let me just clear this terminal window and then rerun this npm run WDIO. And you can see the directory got created. Don't worry, it will retry connection. Yes. And now you can see that the test case is now running. I think there are 3 test cases which will be running. Okay, so here you can see it is just giving you the failed, so don't worry about that. It is just saying that how many test cases got failed, but in fact there are 2 test cases got passed. Let me show you that here. You can see that 2 test cases got passed, 1 got failed, and the same thing we can also see into our, just to refresh this repository, and then if you go, you can see reports Allure, and under that we have Allure results, and then here you can see Allure report is there, and you can just open this index.html into the finder, right click this index.html and open it into the Safari browser, and here you can see 2 test cases got passed, 1 got failed. You can even see the suite wise execution as well here as a report. You can see that. So that is how actually you can run these test cases, but just make sure that if you are moving to the version 8, couple of things you need to change into the ts config, into the package.json here, and then you have to make sure that all the ts modules whichever you are importing, you need to make sure that the extension should be with JS. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Hope this session is helpful to understand if you are migrating your existing framework to version 8, then what are the different things that you need to take care to make sure that your test cases are running smoothly as it was with the version 7. Okay, so hope this session is useful. Do subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't. Thank you for watching.